So hey everybody, Happy New Year and welcome back to Bow and Arrow Garage. So the first thing I want to do is I want to announce the winner of the Super Clean giveaway. It is Todd3025. So Todd, if you will send your contact information, including your name and your address, to the email in the description box of this video, we'll get that information forwarded over to Super Clean and that gift package will get sent out to you. So unfortunately in this video I'm going to kind of have to set the C3 Corvette to the side just for a few days. I've got a couple of projects that I really needed to get done. So the first thing is on my Tahoe, my wife and I were driving a couple of days ago and we heard an all too familiar clunk in the vehicle. About 5 or 6 years ago we were on vacation and we started to notice when I would accelerate in the vehicle that there would be a clunking sound and then everything would seem to be normal. And what turned out to be is the left-hand engine mount had broken. So basically the engine mount is a metal bracket and it's got a rubber pad that is cemented onto the bracket. And that pad had separated, so every time I would accelerate, the engine would lift up and then you would hear the clunk when it would drop back down into place. And so at that time I inspected the mounts. The passenger side seemed to be fine. So I replaced the driver's side with an aftermarket version of the mount. That was about 150,000 miles. I think the car has about 212,000 miles on it, something like that now. And this the mount that I put on has already failed. That could be due to a couple of factors. First of all, obviously I think OEM parts are normally better quality than the aftermarket parts. That's not always true, but that's a general statement. The other thing though is that when I had done the transmission, I had the transmission out for about 4 or 5 weeks and I tried to support the engine as best as possible, but I did notice that the engine mounts were kind of under tension a little bit, and so that probably led to a premature failure of the engine mount. So this time I'm going to go ahead and replace both the driver and the passenger side with OEM mounts, and that's something I really need to get done. And the other thing is I want to work on my C10 truck. So since I got the transmission done on the Tahoe, I've been using that as my daily driver. And so I kind of parked the C10 for a while. It has some issues that needed to be addressed, and I'm really seriously considering doing a chassis swap on it. So I didn't want to do a whole lot to it right now, but I decided I'm going to go ahead and at least address these couple of issues. So the first thing is the power steering pump had started leaking pretty good. I could put fluid in it, and the next day there would be a big puddle under the truck. And since I've been working so much on the C3, I really haven't even looked at it to see what's going on. So I want to look at that, try to figure out what's going on with the power steering pump. But also I just need to replace the front brakes. I need to change the oil. But while I'm in changing the front brakes, what I want to do is I want to address an issue. So when I put the new wheels on the truck several years ago, I also replaced the front calipers. And the front calipers were just bare steel. And I didn't really think about it a whole lot at the time, but over the years, as the vehicle's been washed, as I've driven through water puddles and different things, the calipers have gotten wet and then they flash rusted, and then as the water drips on the wheels, it's really stained the wheels really bad. So I want to go ahead and clean up the calipers and at least get those things primed so I can kind of alleviate that situation going forward. But the first thing I want to do is I want to take the C3 Corvette for a drive. I want to kind of give you a better video of how it's running. It is running a lot better. I've done a little bit of tuning to it in the last week or so, and so I just want to give you a short video of that, and then we'll jump into the other projects. So anyways guys, as you can probably hear in the video, the idle is pretty high. Besides that, the car is running pretty good. I did come back home and I tweaked on the idle a little bit. I reset the IAC steps. I kind of went in and zeroed out the TPS, the throttle position sensor, and I went and took it for another drive. The idle was perfect. As I was coming back home, my neighbor waved me over, so I pulled over. I shut the vehicle off. He and I talked for a few minutes. I got in and started it, and the idle was high again. So, man, I really want to work on this car, and I want to start tweaking on the tune, but I've got to get these other projects going, so I'm going to have to set this thing to the side, and then we'll address this down the road. But for now, we're going to jump back into the video, and I want to work on my C10 truck. I don't have my engine mounts here yet, so I can't work on the Tahoe. So we'll address the issues on the truck, and then when the mounts come in, we'll work on the Tahoe. So you can see these wheels are pretty nasty on the backside. It's a combination of brake dust, but also the pitting on the, see if I can show it on the inside. That's from the rust. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to degrease these things first, and then I'm going to use the all-wheel cleaner on them. Of course, I'm using super clean products. I'm going to go ahead and do the degreaser first, and then I'll move to the all-wheel cleaner. Well, it's a good thing that I'm doing this. I've been kind of fighting a little shimmy in the truck, and I think I found the reason. Right here, the wheel's bent a little bit. I had no idea that it was bent, and it's not much, but it is definitely bent a little bit, so that's not good. So I wanted to give you an idea of how good this all-wheel cleaner works. You can see these windows of clean and dirty. Basically, I had the wheel laying on its face, and I had just sprayed, of course I degreased it initially, but then I sprayed the all-wheel cleaner on there and just let it set for about maybe a minute, and then rinse it off, and you can see where it ran down between the spokes. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and clean this front side, and then we'll get on these brakes. So I wanted to show the difference between the wheels that I cleaned with Super Clean, which are the front ones, and the rear ones, which I haven't cleaned. So the rear ones don't get nearly as dirty as the front, just because they don't deal with all the brake dust and different stuff. But you can see how dull they are, and then these things just shine right now. So anyways, that's the difference. It works pretty good. The truck needs a paint job, a bath, and everything else, but besides that, looks pretty decent. Okay guys, that's pretty much going to be it for tonight. I worked on the truck a little bit today. I did a lot of other stuff kind of in the meantime, so it took all day, but really all I ended up doing was changing out the front brake pads. I already went and tested them out. Everything's good on that. The other thing is I had a leak on my power steering pump, and man, it seemed like a really big leak. I mean, I could put fluid in it, and then a week later it'd be down again. But I crawled up under the truck, I cleaned everything up, and I really couldn't find a smoking gun that would lead me to believe that I had such a big leak. Maybe it was under dynamic load when I was going down the road that it was leaking more. I'm not really sure, but But anyways, the only thing I found was a couple, you know, a drip, maybe two coming from the return line where it hooked into the power steering pump. So I basically just ended up pulling it off and cutting the end of the line off and putting it back on. So I'm going to monitor it for a couple of days and we'll see what ends up coming of it. Hopefully that fixed it. If not, then I know I have a bigger issue. The other thing I found when I was cleaning the wheels is I found that rim was bent a little bit, and I've had a little bit of a shimmy going down the road, and I thought maybe the front end just needed to be rebuilt or something. It's been 12 or 13 years since I rebuilt the front end of the truck, so I was thinking maybe it was just time, but I think actually that wheel was it. I actually ended up bending it back. It's not really a recommended procedure, but I went ahead and just figured the wheel was already damaged anyway, so I bent it back into place. I went and took it for a drive. I didn't really notice anything. So I'm going to go drive it here again in a little bit and see what comes of it. But either way, I think I'm going to end up, like I talked about earlier, doing a chassis swap. And that's going to kind of mandate that I change wheels anyway. So anyways, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down for the night. And then we'll see you guys again soon. Okay guys, it's a few days later and the Tahoe engine mounts are finally here. It took a lot longer for them to arrive than I had expected. But anyways, I'm going to jump into it. This is not a job I'm looking forward to. If the first time I replace that driver's side mount is any indication, this is going to be a royal pain in the butt, especially because the driver's side is way easier than the passenger side is. So I'm going to get the car pulled into the garage. I'm going to put it up on my ramps on all four tires. That way I just get it a little bit further off the ground and give me more room to work underneath, and then we'll get going on this thing. So as you can see, I've got that cinder bolt out. If you just follow my extension down, it's sitting just behind where the bolt came out. There's another one a little forward and inboard of that, and then there's another one in the back. The forward one's not going to be too bad. The other one's going to be kind of a pain. The other ones on the left side, they're all pretty decent to get to, which is with the wobble socket. And then you've got the 4 bolts going into the engine block itself. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these out, and then I'm going to support the engine. We'll pull the ones from the engine block, and then we'll get this thing out. Okay, I got the left side mount out, and man, it's just destroyed. I think it's a really poor design. Like I said, this is an aftermarket one. This is, I'm going back with the OEM. The original OEM lasted much longer. This is just completely annihilated. Now I've got to move over to the right, but just taking a little bit of a breather here. These things are definitely not easy to get out. It's very dangerous. I've got the oil pan jacked up back where the filler plug is, and you just got to be careful on the clearance up there. I'm about as high as I can possibly go, and you don't want to go any higher and you end up hitting the firewall up there. So don't want to damage anything. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get back to it and try to get this right side out. I'm gonna pull out the right side, put the new right side in, and then do the left side. Okay folks, I finally got the passenger side engine mount out, and man, is it obliterated. The good thing about the right side is that the torque of the motor tends to push it down, so it's not as big of a deal, but man, it was a nightmare to get out, and I still got the nightmare trying to get it back in, so I'm gonna go ahead and work on that. I mean, there's no way I can really film any of this. I mean, I've been trying to use both hands, pry bars and all kinds of mess. So this is one of the more difficult things that I've done in quite a while. The one thing I wanted to show on this is that it is almost impossible to get these things in and out with these heat shields on. So what you need to do is take these tangs right here and just bend them up. And there's 4 of them. Anyways, separate the engine mount from the heat shield.
you definitely want to put the heat shield back in, and I'm talking about on the new ones. Even on the old one, if you're having difficulty getting it out, you can do that. But you definitely want to put the heat shield back on. So once you're done, slide the engine mount into place, and then slide the heat shield up under it. And you might have to bend these down just a little bit. I usually bend these completely, and if they break off, they break off. It's not a big deal. The tangs are there just to locate it. Just what's important is that the hose line up, obviously. But I'm telling you, if you don't take those off, you're going to have a very difficult time. It doesn't really make sense why it makes such a big difference, but you'll fight this thing and fight this thing, and then once you take the heat shield off, it'll slide right in. So obviously you want to get the engine lifted up as much as possible, but that is the tip for the day. Once again, this thing is completely trashed. So, you know, that's if you're driving and when you go to take off you hear a clunk, it's not anything to do with your transmission or your rear end or your drive shaft. It's most likely these engine mounts.
Okay guys, I finished the engine mounts up on the Tahoe. I took it for a little drive. I went and washed it. It was pretty filthy. You know, the engine mounts are complete, and like I said, they are kind of difficult, and I apologize I didn't get a whole lot of footage of it. It's just the fact that I'm working on the garage floor up under the vehicle. Most of the time having to use both hands and not being able to hold a camera and record, you know. So but what I ended up doing is I ended up having to take the starter out, you know, so that I could do the passenger side, and then I had to displace the transmission cooler line. So I just disconnected them where they connect into the transmission, move them out of the way. That way I could slide the mount out between the lines and the cross member. I think you probably could pull the cross member out and get it out that way, and in retrospect that might be a little bit easier just because there's so much stuff in the way of trying to get up and get the little clips out of the transmission cooler lines, and then you don't have to worry about losing transmission fluid and going back and make sure that you have the right amount of fluid in the transmission, different things. So in retrospect, like I said, I might have done that differently, but it is what it is. The other thing is I ended up taking the knock sensor off of the engine block on the right side just so I wouldn't break it when I pulled the engine mount out. It's kind of right below the mount, above the oil pan, kind of in the center of the engine block. The left side, I didn't pull it out. I didn't feel like it was necessary, but anyways, this is, like I said, this is a job that you want to be very careful. You want to make sure that you support the engine block good. You want to raise it up enough to get the mounts out, but like I said, you don't want to hit the firewall and damage your intake or anything. So anyways, with that being said, you know, if you decide to tackle this job, it is possible. If you go read the forums, everybody says that you have to take your steering shaft apart and different things. That is absolutely not necessary. But this job can be done. It's not easy, but you know, sometimes it's one of those things where I'd rather do it myself than go pay the dealership. I don't even know what they charge, but I'm sure they charge, you know, $1,500 to $2,000. An independent shop might charge half of that, but for $200 I was able to do it myself. So just the cost of the mounts basically. So anyways, you know, I ended up getting most of what I set out to do this this little break I had from work. I got the Tahoe fixed. I got my C10 going. I'm still monitoring the power steering pump, but it looks like it's okay. The one other big project I had is trimming my trees here at the house. I did get the tree that most needed the trimming done. That was the only one I got done, so unfortunately I didn't get all that I had set out to do accomplished, but I just had a lot of little projects. I helped another friend of mine fix his vehicle, and so it's been a busy 10 or 11 days here, but I'm ready to move forward in the new year. And I want to say once again to everybody watching, thank you for joining in. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel. And I want to say to everyone watching, have a great new year. We hope to see more of you, and we hope you see more of us. Take care, and we'll see you next time.